All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Imagine a brutally forced choice. Picture Europe, where every major leader, finance minister, business exec, and, well, everyday voter suddenly wakes up to a reality they literally can't ignore anymore. In this scenario, Europe can't just pretend that security and prosperity will magically take care of each other. The bills have come due, you know? The world's gotten a lot more dangerous, the economy is fragile, and that comfortable political fantasy, the idea that a continent can protect itself, modernize, and grow indefinitely without massive sacrifice, has just completely fallen apart.
So, here's the unavoidable question that completely shatters that fantasy. Do we spend more on defense, or do we spend more on growth? And look, this isn't some theoretical debate for a dusty policy paper. It's a real, forced choice with immediate consequences. Every single extra euro spent on one side, it feels like a euro violently ripped from the other. Once Europe is forced to make this call, literally everything changes. Budgets, factories, alliances, the public mood, even the very meaning of the word European.
Section 1. The brutal choice. To really grasp why this choice is so incredibly painful, we've got to look at what's actually on the chopping block here.
Okay, let's talk defense. The harsh reality is, defense demands an enormous pile of resources long before a war even starts. It's not a switch you just flip when trouble shows up. Readiness means rebuilding complex supply chains, stockpiling ammo, upgrading air defenses, maintaining serious cyber resilience. All of that takes time, immense capital, and a total, unified focus on survival in a world that's getting harsher and way more unpredictable by the year.
On the flip side, growth doesn't exactly happen by accident either, right? It requires massive capital to keep the engine of a productive society running. We're talking schools, digital infrastructure, cutting-edge tech, energy affordability, and just the general confidence that tomorrow will reward long-term investment. So, the agonizing dilemma is this. Do we protect the future by strengthening the shield, or do we protect it by feeding the engine?
Section 2. Path A. The shield. Let's map out how a defense-first Europe actually builds its reality.
If Europe chooses the shield, the immediate result is a massive, structural redirection of public funds. Ammunition production kicks into overdrive, cyber defense becomes priority number one, and strategic logistics are heavily hardened. Now, this definitely sends a powerful signal to global rivals. It says Europe isn't soft. It's a serious, hard power player in a confrontational age. But it pays for this with intense domestic austerity. Every euro spent on a tank is a euro not spent on social programs, the green transition, or tax relief. And honestly, the political blowback from that sudden drop in public investment, it would be immediate, intense, and a total nightmare for any politician hoping to keep their job.
Section 3. Path B. The engine. But what if we go the other route and double down on internal prosperity?
In a growth-first Europe, the continent doubles down on competitiveness, tech, and the energy transition. The whole philosophy here is that a rich Europe can just afford defense later, that a booming economy is the bedrock of everything else. But there's a massive catch. Choosing growth aggressively while underinvesting in defense means becoming economically strong on paper but strategically naked in reality. A wealthy, unprepared continent is just a highly tempting target for coercion, blackmail, or cyber sabotage. It's a very, very fragile kind of success.
And these two paths, they create entirely different social atmospheres. Because let's face it, people don't just live through policy, they live through the mood that policy creates. A defense-first Europe feels heavy, anxious, cautious, really burdened by militarized thinking. Meanwhile, a growth-first Europe feels optimistic, dynamic, and open, but, as we said, highly vulnerable. It's literally a choice between a guarded fortress and an expanding but fragile marketplace.
Section 4. The continental divide. As you can imagine, this impossible choice immediately fractures the political landscape.
Acting as an impartial narrator here, if we look closely at these factions, you realize every single political bloc actually holds a piece of the truth. Left-wing factions prioritize welfare and climate resilience. They are terrified of losing social protections. Right-wing factions argue security is just way too urgent to ignore, fearing deep geopolitical weakness. Centrists, well, they try to balance both and usually end up satisfying absolutely nobody. Meanwhile, business leaders are sweating over lost competitiveness, and military leaders are sounding the alarm about being underprepared for conflict. The domestic fights over these trade-offs would be absolutely brutal.
And naturally, this divide bleeds right into the general public. One side of the population looks at the news from the eastern borders, the rising cyber incidents, the energy volatility, and global instability, and they demand a fortress. To them, it's incredibly obvious. They're saying, of course, defense must come first. Without security, nothing else matters, right?
But meanwhile, the other side points to the daily, grinding struggle of living costs. They look at stagnant wages, severe housing shortages, youth frustration, and they demand a thriving marketplace. To them, of course, growth must come first. And both groups essentially accuse the other of living in pure denial. This isn't just a basic economic debate anymore, it's an existential argument over what kind of future Europe actually wants to build.
Section 5. Global reactions. Because, this choice doesn't happen in a vacuum. The rest of the world is watching closely. This choice drastically alters Europe's standing on the global stage. The US is watching to see if Europe is finally serious about burden sharing, though, to be fair, a defense-heavy Europe might also signal unwanted strategic autonomy. Russia? They read the choice to test deterrence levels. If Europe chooses growth, Moscow might see more room for strategic maneuvering and pressure. China, meanwhile, weighs Europe as an economic partner against its strategic flexibility. The path Europe chooses fundamentally changes how adversaries and allies test, treat, and negotiate with the continent.
Section 6. A new European model. But rather than fighting itself in some worst-case scenario, what if Europe uses this intense pressure to mature and redesign its whole approach?
Let's map out what a best-case synthesized solution looks like. Here, Europe steps away from that nasty either-or trap. Instead of choosing one at the total expense of the other, it integrates smart defense with targeted economic growth. How? Well, it utilizes joint procurement to consolidate military spending way more efficiently. It directs growth funds strictly to where they're most productive, and crucially, this is a big one, it heavily invests in dual-use technologies, like digital infrastructure and advanced logistics, that strengthen both economic and military resilience at the exact same time.
A mature society realizes that protection and prosperity are independent pillars of survival. Kids want everything at once, but adults learn that resources are finite. So, the true question shifts from defense or growth to what kind of industrial base can actively support both. The future isn't free. It has to be funded, planned, and rigorously protected. It requires a willingness to just abandon the old habit of pretending that hard choices can be delayed forever.
Ultimately, this explainer reveals that this isn't just some boring budget debate. It's a profound mirror held up to Europe's soul. It asks how much the continent is willing to sacrifice right now for the future it wants later. Does the continent want to be safe, prosperous, or both? And more importantly, is it finally ready to face the real mathematics of power to make that happen? It's an unforgettable question, and honestly, one that will define the very meaning of strength in a rapidly changing world. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.